For literally thousands of years, one of humanity's deadliest enemies has been a tiny insect. But what if? What if we're right on the verge of a breakthrough that could finally turn the tide? Today, we are diving into a landmark new study about a vaccine that could completely change the fight against malaria.
So let's just start with a number, 620,000. That's a tough number to even wrap your head around, right? But that's how many people, mostly young children, are killed by malaria every single year. For a disease that's preventable, that figure is just staggering. And honestly, our progress against it is kind of stalled lately.
But now, a next-generation vaccine is showing some absolutely incredible promise in brand new clinical trials. So the big question is this: is it enough? Is this the thing that will finally let us get ahead of this devastating disease? Well, let's dig into the data and find out.
To really get the urgency here, you have to understand who's most at risk. A heartbreaking 80% of all malarial deaths in Africa are in kids under 5 years old. I mean, this isn't just a statistic, It's a stolen future for the most vulnerable people on the planet. The stakes just could not be higher.
Now, you might be thinking, hey, wait a minute, don't we already have a malaria vaccine? And you'd be right. The first one, called RTS-S, was a truly historic achievement. But the problem is, its effectiveness is limited, and we just can't make enough of it to protect every child who needs it. The world has been urgently looking for something better, something we can actually scale.
And that's where this new candidate, R21/Matrix-M, comes into the picture. It was literally designed from the ground up to be more effective, and that Matrix-M part, you see, think of it like a turbocharger for your immune system. It's a key ingredient, an adjuvant that helps supercharge the body's response. But a great design is one thing. Proving it works is everything.
To do that, scientists launch what is basically the ultimate test, a massive multi-country phase 3 clinical trial. This is the absolute gold standard for proving if a vaccine isn't just effective, but also safe enough for millions of people.
And the scale of this thing was just immense. We're talking 4,800 children, aged from just 5 months all the way up to 3 years old, spread across 4 different African countries. So this wasn't some small lab test. Oh no, this was designed to see how the vaccine held up in the real world, in places with these intense seasonal outbreaks and in areas where malaria is just a constant, year-round threat.
So how'd it work? Well, the core idea is pretty straightforward, but the execution has to be incredibly rigorous. The kids were randomly assigned to get either the new R21 vaccine or a control vaccine. And here's the critical part. It was double-blind. That means neither the families nor the doctors knew who got what. Then, after a series of shots and a booster a year later, the researchers just tracked one simple thing: who got sick with malaria.
So, after a full year of meticulous tracking, the moment of truth finally arrived. The researchers unblinded the data, at last revealing which group of kids had gotten the real vaccine. And the results? They were truly remarkable.
First up, in areas where malaria hits in these intense seasonal waves, the R21 vaccine showed a 75% efficacy. Let me be clear about what that means. It prevented 3 out of every 4 cases of malaria. That is a huge, huge level of protection.
Okay, so what about the places where malaria is a constant year-round problem? Even there, the vaccine was incredibly powerful, showing a 68% efficacy. This kind of consistency across totally different environments, that's the sign of a really, really robust vaccine. This chart really just says it all, doesn't it? Look at the bar on the left. In the control group, more than 40% of kids got malaria within a year. Now, look at the R21 group on the right. That number plummets to just 15%. You are literally looking at the protective shield of this vaccine right there in the data.
So the main results were fantastic, but the researchers didn't stop there. When they really drilled down into the data and started sorting it by the age of the kids, they found something else, another crucial finding that was kind of surprising.
And get this, the vaccine was even more effective in the youngest children. For the little ones aged 5 to 17 months, the efficacy jumped to an incredible 78%. This is a huge deal, because that is precisely the age group that's most vulnerable to severe disease and death. It means we can protect these kids when they need it the absolute most.
Of course, how well it works is only half the battle, right? A vaccine absolutely has to be safe, and the news on that front was just as good. The study found R21 was well tolerated. The side effects were mild, exactly what you'd expect, a little soreness or a temporary fever. Most importantly, no serious safety flags were raised, and 0 deaths were linked to the vaccine.
So, what do we have? A safe and highly effective vaccine, especially for the kids who need it most. But what does this really mean for the bigger picture? How do these amazing scientific results translate into a real turning point for global health?
Because look, a powerful vaccine that nobody can afford or get their hands on doesn't actually change the world. To really make a dent in those hundreds of thousands of deaths every year, a vaccine has to be both cheap enough and plentiful enough to reach every single child at risk. And this is where the R21 story goes from just promising to truly revolutionary.
First, let's talk cost. The projected price for a single dose is less than $4. That price point makes huge public immunization campaigns totally feasible for governments and global health groups. It just removes this massive hurdle that's been in the way for years.
And then you've got the question of scale. The manufacturing partner, the Serum Institute of India, has the capacity to pump out up to 200 million doses a year. Just think about that. Compare it to the 18 million doses of the first vaccine that were available over 3 years. This isn't just a small step up, it's a complete game changer, finally creating a supply that can actually meet the enormous demand.
And you know what? The world is not messing around. This timeline shows just how fast things are moving. Based on these incredible results, the vaccine's already been licensed in key African countries, and now it's earned a full policy recommendation from the World Health Organization. The runway for widespread deployment is totally clear.
This quote from the study's own authors really says it all. After years of progress just hitting a wall, they believe this vaccine has the potential to, and I'm quoting here, reinvigorate progress in the fight against malaria. They don't just see it as another tool, they see it as a catalyst for brand new hope and action.
So where does all this leave us? Well, for the very first time, it feels like all the pieces are finally in place. A safe, super effective, low-cost vaccine that we can actually produce on a massive scale. We might just be witnessing the beginning of the end for one of humanity's oldest and deadliest enemies. And that, well, that is a shot of hope for the entire world.